Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at one of the most requested power station reviews I've ever been asked about. This is the Montek X1000. Now I know why people are so interested in this. This has some really good specification. It's super rugged and you can see it's very small and compact. This is very thin. It's just this heavy duty briefcase with a battery and inverter inside and all the charging built in. In fact, there is an 80-watt folding solar panel that fits in the top of this power station, and all you have to do is plug this into the wall. There's no external charging bricks, and all the charging cables fit inside one of the cubbies as well. Now this power station weighs about 25 pounds, so most people will be able to just pick this up and go, so very impressive design on this power station. Now I know some of you are putting two and two together, this being 25 pounds, how does it have lithium iron phosphate chemistry? Because that's just too lightweight. And you are correct. This actually has lithium NMC pouch cells inside, and it's rated at 2,000 life cycles to 80% capacity. So let me explain how that works. Montek is using an automotive grade battery inside that's rated for a 3C discharge rate. That means that you can discharge this battery inside here at 3 times the amount of the capacity. Yet they're only choosing to discharge it at a 1C rate, meaning there's much less stress, much less heat involved, so they can get many more life cycles on this. So this can get 2,000 life cycles versus 500 life cycles or 800 life cycles is what you see on similar chemistry power stations. So very cool. It still has the benefits of being small and compact, yet it gets a lot of life cycles. Also, Montek has 6 safety measures in place to keep any risk of fire explosion to a minimum on this battery, so you should rest assured this is a very safe power station that gets a lot of life cycles. Now as for pricing, this power station comes in at $999 if you just purchase the power station itself. Now if you want the included solar bundle with the 80-watt ETFE panel, you're going to pay around $1,150. Now I did ask Montek for a discount code for you guys, my viewers, and they provided a $150 discount code. So if you are interested after watching this entire video, if you like the performance of this power station, don't forget to save that $150. Brings the price down to $850 on this power station. So I'll include that down in the video description. Now, in the rest of the video, we're going to talk about the performance on this. I've been very impressed, especially with the AC and DC capacity test results. The inverter has performed very good, and we're just going to talk about each one by one. Then we'll do some solar charging demos and some other charging demos just to show you guys how that works. And then at the end of the video, we'll put it through my new power station grading system, give it a score of 1 to 10 so you guys can compare this to the competition and see how it stacks up. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Now because this power station has a level of water resistance, to get access to the ports inside you have these trap doors with these rubber gaskets, so that's pretty cool. Now speaking of the DC output, whenever the power station is turned on, the DC output is just enabled. So the USB ports and the DC output over here are kind of always on whenever you have this on. So taking a closer look, you have a 12-volt cigarette plug rated at 10 amps. Right above that you have two 5521 connections rated at 7 amps. And then over here on the other side, you have two 5525 connections rated at 10 amps. Now I did plug in my battery load tester to see what it was regulated at, and you get a steady 13.7 volts output throughout the entire state of charge, so very good regulation. Now testing the maximum amount of power you could get out of the DC output of each of these ports, I was able to get 14 amps or well above 150 watts on the 12-volt cigarette plug. And I was able to pull the rated 7 amps from the 5521 connections and the rated 10 amps from the 5525 connections. So I was able to get the rated output on all of these outputs, which was really good. Now I did try plugging in 2 battery load testers to 2 of these outputs just to see the max amount of power that this would allow. And I was able to pull a total of 260 watts, which was really good, out of this output before it ended up shutting off from being overloaded. Now this power station also works great for charging or powering your USB electronics. There are 3 USB ports available on this. You have 2 USB-A quick charge 3.0 ports, and you have 1 USB-C 100 watt power delivery port. Now I did test these out for about an hour charging another power station, running a USB fan and a USB light. I didn't see any issues, and I was able to get the rated output from the 100 watt USB-C port. Now this is not a bidirectional port, it just puts out power, so do not plan on charging this power station with that 100-watt USB-C port. Now there are two other tests that I like to do on the DC output. One of them is plugging in 12-volt compressor fridge to make sure that the DC output doesn't shut off after like 4 hours or 6 hours. So I plugged in my 12-volt compressor fridge and I was able to run it for 24 hours non-stop. It just kept going and going. So very good results. There's no auto shut-off settings. Now the battery only dropped from 100% down to 73% over that 24-hour test. So that also tells us that you have a very low parasitic drain on the DC output of this power station because it ran the fridge and had the DC output enabled over 24 hours, and we only lost 27%. So definitely less than 1% per hour if you have the DC output on, are you gonna lose to parasitic drain. Now the second test that I like to do, and it's kind of the final test in all these, is the actual discharge test for the DC output. So I charge this up to 100%, take my battery load tester, and discharge it until it shuts all the way down, and that will tell us the full capacity that we were able to pull from the power station, and then I compare that to the advertised capacity. Now this is advertised to have 1,010 watt hours of capacity, and during that test I was able to pull a total of 902 watt hours, meaning we pulled 89.3% of the advertised capacity, which is really good. Now I always try to set a really high goal of 85% on a power station, and most score around 75 to 85%. But with this one scoring 89.3%, it's very good. So huge thumbs up to the efficiency of the DC output and the actual capacity that you can pull. Now in the next portion of the video, I want to talk about the AC inverter on this power station. Now on the other side, you have a similar trap door, and once you open it, you get access to 2 AC outlets, and you also have access to put your charging cables here. Now over here, you have a power button that turns on the AC inverter, and then once you turn it on, you can see on the screen that it's enabled and how many watts that you're pulling whenever you have a load plugged in. Now this power station has an inverter that's rated at 1,000 watts continuous or a 2,000 watt surge. And I always like to plug in my oscilloscope to see what type of power we get from it to see if it's high quality or not. Now when I plugged in my oscilloscope, we got 120 volts output, and we saw a pure sine wave with no distortion or noise on it, and we did get 60 hertz. So the power that you get from this inverter is very similar to the power that you get from your power company through your wall outlet. So very good there. Now, of course, those numbers don't mean much if you don't have a load on the AC inverter. So the next test that I ran was a complete max load test for 15 minutes. That means I put a 1,000 watt load on the AC inverter and let it run for 15 minutes to make sure it didn't shut off or overheat or anything. Now about halfway through that test, I plugged in my oscilloscope. We were getting around 118 volts output, so just barely a teeny bit of voltage drop, nothing of a problem there, and also still got a very good sine wave output with no distortion. So even under max load, you still get very good output from this power station. Also, it ran for the full 15 minutes, didn't overheat. Now the fans did kick on about 3/4 of the way through the test, and they started ramping up all the way, and here's what it sounds like when the fans are running. Just FYI, the fans are variable, and usually when you have a DC load or it's charging, the fans don't really run at all, but when the AC inverter is maxed out, they will run, and that's about how loud it gets. Now there are 3 other little small tests that I do on the AC inverter before we finish up talking about the AC inverter. So let's fly through the results on those 3 tests. Now the first one is where I plug in a guitar amp into the AC inverter to make sure that it has a clean noise. There's no crackling or pops whenever you plug it in. So this is what it sounded like when I plugged in my guitar amp. So overall you can hear that it's very clear. It doesn't have any background noise, and it sounds very similar to whenever you plug it into your wall. So good results there. Now the next test I like to do is a parasitic drain test. So I had the power station charged up to 100%, and I just leave the AC inverter on and see how much power I lose over an hour. Now some of the larger power stations, you'll lose around 2% per hour whenever you leave the AC inverter on, and that's with no load, because the AC inverter actually uses background power to convert the electricity, and it's whenever you have it on, it's using power. So I always suggest if you're not using the AC inverter, shut it off to save on power. So I came back after an hour, and this power station had only lost 1%. It was down to 99%. So you can plan on around 1% per hour of parasitic drain on the AC inverter. Now the last test that I like to do on the AC inverter is a full discharge test where I take it from 100% down to 0% using the AC inverter. I have a watt meter in line to track all the power going out of the battery, and this is a way to tell how many usable watt hours you can expect as you discharge this using the AC inverter. Now, some power stations will score horribly in this, but I was very impressed by the results of this. After the test was completed, I was able to get 910 watt hours from this power station. That means I was able to pull 90% of the advertised capacity because this is rated at 1010 watt hours. So very, very impressive results on the AC inverter for this power station. And I was also impressed with the DC output. So overall, the testing on this is going very well so far. Now in the next portion of the video, I want to go ahead and talk about charging the Montek X1000. Now there are 3 charging cables that come with this power station. You can charge it with solar panels, you can charge it off another battery or with your vehicle, and you can charge it from the wall using the internal AC charger. That's right, guys, there's no external charger on this. All the charging is built inside. Now looking on the side of the power station, you just have 2 charging ports, and that's where these wires connect up. Now there are 2 versions of this power station. One comes with a folding solar panel, and if you purchase that version, the solar panel is actually stored right here in the top in this little cubby here, which is pretty cool. Let's go ahead and take this outside and do a solar charging demo first. And then after that, we'll talk about charging with these 2 options. Okay guys, I've brought the Montek X1000 outside here. Now if you happen to purchase this power station with the solar panel included, there's a bundle you can do with this 80 watt ETFE folding panel. I want to show you guys the power that you should expect to see from this panel. So first we're going to test the power station using this panel, and then we're going to use these larger panels here in the back. Now an important note, you always want to make sure you have your power station in the shade. So keep it cool, keep it in the shade, and then just have the sun close enough where you can put the panel in the sun. Now solar conditions today are really good. We have a few high clouds kind of throughout the sky, but our testing right now is actually really good sunshine. It's around 100 degrees. Now this small panel does not have kickstands, so I just have it laying flat on the ground. Let's go ahead and see what we're getting on the power station. So we're seeing around 62 watts input on the power station using this 80 watt panel. So pretty respectable results laying flat on the ground. Now the next test that I want to do on this power station is to see the maximum solar charging input. So we're going to over panel it slightly. Now I have 480 watt BougeRV solar panels here on my portable mount, and this power station can handle up to 70 volts charging input. So we can actually hook 3 of these panels together in series. So let's go ahead and hook up 3 of these panels to the power station and see what we get. Okay, so I just plugged in the solar panels over there, and it jumped to 330 watts instantly, and then it dropped down to 150, and it's slowly ramping up. So I'm not going to sit over there and watch it. It is so hot today, so I'm sitting in the shade, just going to let it sit for a second. Go check it out in a little bit. Okay, hopefully you guys can see the screen here. We're getting 332 to 333 watts input. This has finally stopped going up, and this looks like the peak that we're going to hit with the current conditions. Now remember, it's 100 degrees today, so we are losing quite a bit of power to heat in the conditions. So I do feel that if it was cooler, we'd be able to hit the limit on this, but 330 watts on this power station is actually a pretty decent charging input. This will charge in around 3 hours at this limit, so good to see this high of a charging input. Now the next way to charge this up is by using the DC to DC charging cable that has a 12 volt cigarette plug. I have it screwed into the charging port over there, and I have it plugged into my battery right here. This is a 12 volt battery, so very similar to a car, truck, or a boat that you'd plug into. Let's take a closer look at the screen to see how fast it's charging. So we're getting around 89 to 90 watts charging input when we're using this charging method. So you'd expect this to take around 10 to 11 hours to fully charge up the power station if it was at 0%. Now the last way to charge this up is by using the included AC wall charging cable. Now this has a built-in AC charger, so all you do is you plug this cable into a generator or into your wall power to charge it up. Now whenever you have it plugged into the wall, you're going to see around 200 watts charging input. So this will take around 5 hours to fully charge up this power station from 0%. Now this power station actually has 2 of these access panel doors that open up. There's one on the other side. And it's important to make sure that they are opened up because there's a cooling fan right here, and it actually draws air from the other side and pushes it out this way. So if these are open, you can get good airflow to keep it cool. Now because this power station has 2 charging input ports, I wanted to see if you could dual charge. Now don't mind the background fan, that's actually from this adjustable power supply. I'm simulating a solar panel at around almost 21 volts and 10 amps, and I have the AC wall charger plugged in. and we're getting a total of 400 watts charging input. So this does accept dual charging, and it'll charge much faster, so you can actually charge this in about 2 hours, maybe a little bit longer, to get it up to 100%. Now, another test that I like to do when testing the charging on a power station is to make sure that it supports full pass-through charging. This means that you can use the power station and charge it at the same time, and none of the outputs will shut off. So I have this small heater running off the AC inverter. I have this power station here running off the USB-C 100 watt power delivery port. It's charging it up. And I have this fan running off a 12 volt to USB cigarette plug. So this is running off the 12 volt adapter. Now, taking a closer look at the screen, we are charging the power station via the AC wall charger at 200 watts, and we're discharging the power station at 100 watts through USB-C and around 180 watts with the AC inverter. And everything's been working fine for about 20 minutes or so, so this does support full pass-through charging. Now, I currently have a rainy afternoon to test this, but I wouldn't test this with any other power station. So this has a water resistance level where you can actually leave this out and have it charge in the rain. So it's being rained on right now. Gonna let it sit out here for a while, and we'll come and check on it and see if everything's still working after the rain stopped. Okay, it's hard to tell, but there's just a lot of water on top. Same with the solar panel. You can see it's just coated in water. So yeah, it's been raining quite a bit on this thing. And let's go ahead and look at the screen. Yeah, we're still getting 25 watts charging input. I don't know if you can see that. Battery's at 98%, charging at 25 watts, even with all the water on here. So pretty awesome, guys, that a power station can be in the rain and still charge. Now, right after testing and showing the charging demos, I always like to kind of do an overview of the build quality. Now, this is an extremely durable power station. I have no worries about this being damaged. Now, there are a few other features. On the top, you have this folding handle. Just makes it easier to carry around. And on the side here, you have a LED light. It's a spotlight, so I'm going to shine it over here so it doesn't mess up the camera. But you have a high mode, and then you push it again and it gives you an SOS mode. And this is very, very bright. So if you ever needed to make a distress call or shine the light, you'll be able to see quite a few things. Now, there's one little annoyance that I have about this solar panel inside. Now, it's awesome that the solar panel fits in there. In fact, it's really cool that it has these Velcro straps, holds the solar panel in. But watch, when you go to close it, you have to be extremely careful so that it will shut, because sometimes the wires get in the way, so you can't shut it. So just a minor annoyance. You have to kind of hold it in here, get it all tucked in, make sure nothing's in the way, and then you kind of hold it there, and then hopefully it doesn't get in the way. So you can see there's a solar connection over here that got in the way, so you have to lift it back up. But yeah, it's designed to be so tight in here. So let's see if we got it there. Okay, there we go. See? Minor annoyance. Maybe there's a little technique that you can find out to make that a little bit easier. But I always kind of like giving pros and cons about it. So that's definitely one of the cons, is just the way that the solar panel fits in there. But overall, the build quality on this is crazy. Very, very durable. Probably one of the most durable power stations I've ever tested. Okay guys, we finished all the testing, and now we're at the most important part, is where we actually put this through my power station grading system, give it a score of 1 to 10. There are 10 different categories that are very important for your power station to pass. So let's go ahead and fly through these. Now, the first one is, can this power station charge up to 100% in 4 hours or less? Yes, it can. It gets a point there. Number 2, does this power station accept pass-through charging? Meaning you could charge it and discharge it at the same time without any of the outputs turning off. Yes, this does support pass-through charging. Number 3, does this have a pure sine wave inverter? Yes, it has a 120 volt output, pure sine wave inverter, very clean, great power. Number 4, is the DC output on this power station regulated? Yes, it's regulated at 13.7 volts. Number 5, does this power station have an informational display that tells you everything you'd want to know? Yes, it tells you your watts in, your watts out, and actual battery percentage, so you can get all the information you need off that screen. Number 6, does this have any auto shutoff settings? By default, it does not have any auto shutoff settings. In the owner's manual, it does say a way you can enable an eco mode or an auto shutoff setting if you'd like, but it's good to have it disabled by default. Number 7, first off, does it have USB-C? Yes, it does. And the next one is, does this have a 100 watt USB-C output? Yes, it does, and it worked just fine. Number 3, does this support bidirectional 100-watt charging or discharging? No, unfortunately, this does not charge with USB-C. It only outputs USB-C. So this gets a score of 0.66 points out of 1 point available. Number 8, does this meet at least 85% of its advertised capacity? Now, this is one of the only power stations that has scored above 85% on both the AC and DC outputs. So very good results. We scored around 90% on each output. So huge thumbs up to the Montek X1000. Number 9, does this charge up to 100% in less than 5 hours using solar panels? Now, whenever you're wanting to use something like this, most people have around 5 hours of decent sunshine during the day, so it's important that a power station can charge up to 100% in 5 hours. This one can charge up in around 3 hours using its max solar input, so yes, it gets a point there. Number 10, the last one, is the price on this power station under a price per watt hour of 80 cents. Now this has an advertised capacity of 1,010 watt hours, and the cheapest price you can pick this up for is $849 using the discount code. So that comes out to be around 85 to 84 cents per watt hour. So unfortunately, this is not under the 80 cent mark, so I cannot give it a point there. However, it does have quite a good build quality and the performance was excellent. It's just priced a little bit above what I like to see for an amazing deal. So this is still a good deal. It's not over $1 per watt hour, but it's just not under the level that I like to call it a really good deal. So after we add up all the points, this comes out to a total of 8.66 points, so a very respectable score. So I'll throw this into my power station grading sheet so you guys can see how this performed against the others. So I'll include that down in the video description. So check out the results there and you can compare this one against all the other power stations that I've tested. Okay, we're here at the end of the video. Just want to finalize a few pros and cons about this power station to help you guys decide if this one's right for you or not. Now, don't let my opinion, these are just my opinions. You know, I have some strong opinions, but I'm sure you guys have your own opinions too. But just take these opinions with a grain of salt and make the decision on purchasing this power station or not, you know, because everyone has a different use case. So let's talk about the pros. So the first thing I love about this power station is how rugged and durable it is. The water resistance is a huge factor, not being able to, you know, not worrying about if it's going to get rained on if you have everything closed up. That's really awesome. Also, the quality of components inside and the efficiency on this power station are absolutely, you know, amazing. We saw 90% on both of the outputs on the capacity results. Most power stations, you'll see a 90 on one side and like a 70 on the other. You never see both doing extremely well. So on this power station to see 90% on both the AC and DC capacity results, very, very good. That's telling you you have really good DC regulation, you have really good AC inverter components. So thumbs up to Montek on the components inside this power station. The next thing I like is that they took lithium NMC chemistry and they were able to get 2,000 life cycles to 80% capacity. So that's really cool that they did that. You still get the benefits of having a lightweight, compact power station, but with a lot of life cycles. I like how the MPPT solar charge controller can take 70 volts input, so you can put panels in series. Most small power stations don't do that, so very cool there. And, you know, overall, just really good design. I don't have many complaints about the design at all. Let's go and talk about the cons. The main thing that was a con was the lid not shutting, just a minor, you know, annoyance, nothing huge there. The other con would be just the pricing. I guess this isn't just a huge con, but it's priced above 80 cents a watt hour. However, you're getting such a quality power station that, you know, sometimes you got to pay a little bit more for the quality. And that's what you're doing at 84 to 85 cents a watt hour. There's power station companies that charge over $1 per watt, and this performs better than them. So yeah, I guess that's not a con. I talked myself out of that one. The final con, I would say, would be the fact that this just doesn't have lithium iron phosphate chemistry inside. Now, this is a safe power station. It has all the safety precautions as it should. But on the back and in the owner's manual, it does mention a slight risk of fire or explosion, just like any lithium battery. Your phone has the same battery, your phone could explode. Your laptop has the same battery, your laptop could explode. So it just depends how you treat this power station and how it's designed internally. Now, I believe it's designed internally in a proper way, so you shouldn't have that risk. But there's still things that could happen, like if you left this in an extreme heat environment, could be an issue of the cells, you know, getting too hot. things like that. So you have to be very aware of what you're doing with a power station like this. There's a lot of storage in here, a battery storage, and if something was to go wrong, then you would have an issue. Now just follow what's in the owner's manual. There's a lot of warnings and cautions in there. If you follow everything there, you'll be just fine. But I have to ask, with lithium iron phosphate being such a common, safer battery chemistry these days, I wish they would come out with a version like that, because I'm a lithium iron phosphate fanboy. You guys already know that, and I think a lot of my viewers are as well. So if they came out with something like this that was LFP, I think they would sell like hotcakes. Keep the price, similar, the features similar. Yeah, they could up maybe the solar charging just a teeny bit, the AC charging just a teeny bit, but other than that, excellent, excellent power station, right? So those are my thoughts, guys. Don't let my opinions, blur what you guys want to do, but that's just what I think about this power station. I would have loved to see this as LFP, but other than that, that's like the only thing that I'm thinking about that kind of holds me back on this power station. So I'd love to get your guys' thoughts. Throw a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Also, if you guys have purchased something like this, I would love to hear your guys' experience. What do you guys think, or how has your Montek X1000 performed? Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I invite you guys to subscribe to the channel. I have a ton of future content coming out. If you guys haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I'm on my road to 25, maybe 50, maybe 100, a million, maybe a million subscribers. I can dream, right? Anyway, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.